Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz test postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 346. I was white here, played e4, and my opponent goes with e6, and we get the French defense, d4, d5, and I play knight c3, the most common move here. And the top choices for black are various ways to defend the center. I've just put a lot of pressure on the center with the knight, the pawn. And so typical responses are knight to f6. This is the classical French, or bishop to b4, pinning the knight, which also supports those pawns in a way, or d takes e4, the Rubinstein variation, just getting rid of the tension in the center so he doesn't have to worry about it. But my opponent played the unusual move c5. And I looked this up later, and turns out this is called the Marshall variation of the French defense. And like many of Marshall's innovations in the opening, they're not all good. Some of them are still alive today, like the Marshall Gambit and the Ruy Lopez. But he played a lot of opening innovations, and sometimes there's just not enough compensation. And that's what's going on here. Now, I didn't play this the most accurate way. The best way to play it is with e takes d5. And just to show you what I was worried about, I was worried about him taking here, and then if I move the knight, he comes in with the queen check. But I was completely overlooking the fact that this pawn is just hanging here, so I can just take it. The engine suggests it's even more accurate to to throw in the bishop check first. So this is just fine for white, and that's the best way to take. So I misunderstood that, miscalculated that when I was thinking about this position. And I took this way. And now he really can push on with d4, and maybe he gets a little bit of compensation this way. The knight has to move. Probably knight to e2 is the engine recommendation, or knight b5. Knight b5 is kind of the most natural looking move to me. And then if he goes with the check, what's the deal here? Queen d2. Oh, the knight's defended there. Bishop d2. So there's no problem with the check. The knight's defended on b5. So back up. After knight b5, he can play e5 and hold on to his pawn. And, well, it's a complicated game. I can play c3 to undermine the pawn. Bishop to c4, just developing queen to h5. Kind of a funny-looking position. If we count the material, white's still a pawn up, but it looks like in this line at least black has some compensation. He's got open lines for his bishops, and a lot of force on the board, so lots of things can happen from this position. Anyway, my opponent didn't play that way. After I went with the knight, he went c5. I took this way, and he just took back with the bishop, which is sort of what I was expecting too, but not the most accurate way to play. And now I'm pretty much just up a pawn. I take here. He takes back. And I thought this was going to be good for me, even without realizing right away this pawn was just hanging. And I could continue with bishop b5 check, but I can also just grab the pawn, which I did, and he took back. So we get this position where black is a pawn down. Both sides just have one piece developed. Black gets to move another piece now. He goes knight a6. He's got to cover this check. So he's going to get an extra piece developed, but it's not going to be the best kind of developing move in the world. So I just continue with normal moves. Bishop e3. I want to challenge his developed pieces, and if he takes, which he did, I can take back with a knight. Actually, taking is the best idea here. So takes, and bishop to e6. So he has one step ahead of me in development, but it's not worth a whole pawn. So I go c3 to try and stop his knight from coming into this square, maybe causing trouble on c2. He goes knight e7, developing his other piece. I start getting my pieces out. I can develop the bishop with check. And he went knight c6. Misplaces his knights a little bit, though. It's not clear what they're doing on the queen side. I developed my last piece. He castles. I castles. And knight a to b8. Okay, he's rerouting his knights, and he doesn't want to suffer any pawn damage over here, so he's defending the knight. But that's kind of a backwards move. I went knight to g5, going after his bishop here. He dropped his bishop back to d7, and I played bishop back to d3, ganging up on the h-pawn. And now he went knight e5. Yeah, so this just loses a pawn. There was no particular compensation, and after that I retreated back to c2. So knight b to c6 is played here. Rook a d1, normal developing moves, hitting the bishop, although it's defended right now. But if I can distract this knight, I might get something on the bishop. He goes f6, kicking my knight, and reroute the knight to e4, looking at some of these dark squares here. Bishop to e6, getting off this file. Maybe he should bring a rook over and challenge my rook on the d file. I go b3. I didn't want to give up a pawn over here. f5, hitting my knight. I go knight to g5. Yeah, I was really undecided which way to go with the knight, here or here. Either of those moves attacks the bishop. But I thought, well, maybe over here around the king there's some more interesting tactics. I'm taking away squares from his king, and if I ever can manage to deliver a check over here, it could be fatal. He went bishop to c8, getting out of the threat of my knight. I straighten out my pawns with c4. Now they're all safe and defended. He goes a5, looking to undermine on the queen side. Not a bad idea. I get my rook out and put some pressure on the knight here. And now he goes knight to b4, which is a tempting move at first. It looks like, it's a fork, except that the bishop is defended by the knight. So the only piece I really have to worry about is the rook. And when he played that move, he left his knight undefended. So I just take the knight, and it's game over here. So that was just a miscalculation on his part. Good example of blitz play, where you see this cute fork and you play it. And you need to really calculate the consequences of your moves before playing them. And there was certainly plenty of time to do it. So he took the bishop and I took back. And then he resigned at this point because he's just a piece down. I've got two knights against his bishop. And he's also 2 pawns down. I won a pawn in the opening, and then I won a pawn over here with bishop takes h7 check. So a short game, but a little bit of interesting data on the Marshall variation, a little bit about how to play that better. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.